Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning. 15 minutes to change our lives. Heichaltzu. Okay, today is going to be an interesting class. We're going to discuss about two types of godly energy. One godly energy is the way God expresses itself in Ilu V'Alu, which is literally, it means cause and effect or a chain-like relationship. And then the other one is Yesh Ma'ayin, something from nothing. And the idea is essentially we're talking about in this next two chapters, a positive way how to work on ourselves, meaning to the positive light. Not because until now it's been very what we should be doing. And when you have the ego in the way, this is the problem. This is what it's producing. So now we're going to discuss what I can work on in myself to change my reality or to have more bittul. So in this chapter we're going to talk about through simcha, and the next chapter is through bittul, through humility. And so the simcha, and this is a similar concept. What it talks about in Tanya, Alter talks about being simcha, that it's a requirement. If does Hashem is simcha, it's a mitzvah. We should serve Hashem with simcha, meaning we need to be happy. And it's a very important idea. Needing to be happy is not a negative. It sounds a little bit harsh, but means in America you have the concept, the pursuit of happiness, that we have freedoms to pursue happiness, which means happiness is the goal. What Chassidus is teaching us is happiness is not the goal. Happiness is the lifestyle that we need to be living. We need to be happy people. He quotes here from a Maimon Samach, which is, it says over there, Simcha Peretz Geder, Simcha breaks all boundaries. So when we're happy, when we're in a happy mood, everything is different. Everything makes a big difference. And so it's an important, so to speak, goal to reach, that we should be happy. And we shouldn't let things get us down and stop us from being happy. Because happiness is an important key to be able to serve God properly. But they're not happy, and in just life, if you're not happy in life, it's everything becomes more difficult. Whereas when you're happy, all the boundaries that you have can be broken, and you can reach and achieve a lot of things. And we're going to discuss this. So we're going to discuss godliness. Like I said before, we're going to discuss this level of the difference between Ilu V'Alu and Seva Kalmin. Okay. Top of page 90. In the previous chapter, Rabbi Shab discussed the flaws of Yeshus, how it leads to baseless hatred as well as friction and strife, and prevents fruitful interactions between people. Although he will return to that theme, he devotes this and the following chapter to the discussion of desirable approaches to divine service. Yeah, like we talked about. So V'hinei, kasher yadua asher. It's known asher ba'avoda yeshnam basically fani avoda. There's two types of avoda. Ha'alav avoda b'simcha. The first one, which is serving God with simcha, and this we're going to discuss. Meaning that the way you serve God is with this simcha is a tnua, which is through simcha. And the second one, which is talking about in the next chapter, is through humility. So, but for this chapter, we're going to discuss the simcha. So, how do you have simcha? I know. It's meaning, how do you have simcha? When you contemplate and you understand, well, you think about, you meditate on godliness, on the greatness of God. Hey, in the greatness of Him, in the concept of the creation of something from nothing. Meaning, when you think about what does that mean that God created something from nothing, this is what it talks about very much in Sha'ar Yichud, in Tanya, which we just finished a week or two ago. So in Sha'ar Yichud Ve'emunah, it talks about this idea and how one of the main examples that he gives, when creation, something from nothing, it means that constantly godliness is in the creation. An example he uses is like a rock. For example, you can show with this. I have this little piece of toy. Now, naturally, what happens? It drops and everything comes down. Now, imagine for a second, that I'm throwing this toy upwards. What happened? The toy goes up. Is the nature of the toy, did the nature of the toy change to something that goes up? It didn't. The nature of the toy is that it goes down. It's just that my energy, my force, my hand that I'm putting in it is making it go up. And so too with the world. The world is coming from nothing. The ability that the world has to exist is only because God is investing himself into it and making it exist. Because by nature it doesn't exist. Because it's all godly. And to have something that exists as a feeling of a separate entity, the way we do, it comes from yesh ma'ayin, something from nothing, because from godliness to this physical world, feeling something separate, and that constantly happens. And that creation is a recreation every single moment. And he's going to discuss this idea versus il v'alul, which is a cause and effect, which we'll see. Explained elsewhere. Besides the fact, this is a very wondrous, very awesome idea, and it's really hard to understand. We can't really form this, can't really understand this. We don't have this in our reality. Explained else at length. And look into look in that mime over there, talks about this as well. And that mime again is also talking about Inyan of Simcha. So furthermore, there's a wondrous levels in this, ideas in this. Because it's known and creating something from nothing. This is a very distant thing, meaning the distance between what's being created and God, they're so distant from each other. Not meaning in a physical sense, but so to speak, in a physical, when you think about it, it just, we have no relationship between them two. And this is the difference. This is the fundamental difference between il v'alul and shma'ayin. Il v'alul is the cause and effect. It's the way the world was created. Matzilus, meaning the way it works from Matzilus down to the lower world, Bri, Yitzir, and Asiya. That it's a cause and effect. The simple way of explaining it is like intellect and emotions. That you have emotions. They essentially come from the intellect. You think about an idea, and that produces an emotion. And this is all what we're meant to be doing with this serving Hashem through simcha, through appreciating Hashem and understanding God. But it's thinking about it. It's like when I was a kid, I used to watch soccer. I was very into it, whatever. And so I watched my mother. She's from Brazil, and she knows the Brazilian team plays. Everyone's watching. And when they would miss a goal, let's say it was a very hard play, and I would miss, so she would get all angry. It's like, oh, you missed it. And in my head, I was like, how are you complaining? You know how hard that was? That's impossible. It was a miracle that he actually touched the ball. It's like how you and I think about it that I have an understanding of this to a certain extent, at least something, and I can think about the game all day, and the more I think about it, the more I appreciate it, the more emotionally attached I am to the game. Mrs. For her, as much as she got all excited, but it didn't mean that much to her, and for me, it meant a lot more. And the reason is because I live, I think about it, and I studied it. And that's il v'alul. There's a relationship. It's like the intellect to emotions. Intellect produces emotion. We think about an idea, and this is an important thing. This is his bonus. Bonus is thinking about an idea for an extended period of time, and the result from that thought will produce emotions, or it's meant to be. And so we learned about this in Kuntres Tefillah. Is giving you over, but from a close level. It's a relationship that we have some connection. It's like you have a teacher and a student that have some relationship, and the teacher tailors it towards the students. It could be that it's above what the student understands, but there's some connection. They speak the same language. They understand the concepts, maybe not as well, but it's still some relationship. Whereas yesh ma'ayin is something from nothing. There's no connection. There's no, so to speak, meeting points. Because by il v'alul, it's that's why it's called the chain. But in the chain, the top, let's say it's this way, the top and the bottom have they interconnect at some points. There's some connection over them. Just like the thoughts and emotions are different things, but they connect because the thought produces emotion. And the effect fills its cause. Just like the emotions recognize where it's coming from, the intellect. And therefore, they have some connection. But that's by ilvalu. Whereas yesh ma'ayin, which is something totally different, is totally incomparable. You can't compare the two. There's no relationship even. They can't even, and it's hard for us to understand this. It just totally two different worlds. This is a very distant type of giving, because ultimately the world that we have is yesh ma'ayin. So godliness gives, makes the world, but the feeling of godliness that we have, it's totally distant. Whereas the il of olu is it's connection. It's an intellect, it's ideas that it's like intellect and emotion we feel together. And this is sort of in everything. There's most in the world you have il of olu. You don't have much of yesh ma'ayin. The sort of one of the closest things of yesh ma'ayin is having a child. It comes from a little drop to a whole formed child that ultimately will have kids one day. That's such a distant, but even that is not the true yesh ma'ayin in comparison to God in the world. But even that, if you think about it, it's like this little drop somehow will become in 9 months a baby that can survive in the world and can grow up to live a productive life and have more kids and just continues going. That's an amazing idea, but that's like yesh ma'ayin. Whereas of all we have the relationship. In so v'im kain hu hashpa b'bechinas richuk she'abayre mis'alim mistatim aniva. Whereas yesh ma'ayin, the creator is hidden from the creations that like we don't see godliness. It's not an apparent thing because it's so distant. Because it can't be that way. Because if it was, it wouldn't exist. That's the whole premise. Like if we would see godliness in here, if godliness would shine himself without all these concealments, then it wouldn't be our free choice, and we wouldn't exist the way we exist now. And it wouldn't be this il of olu. Also we have to say, which is something, this is a very interesting point. On one hand, he's not there, you can't see godliness at all, but on the same hand, godliness is constantly here. Because when the only way you can exist as this feeling of and seeing yourself separate than God is through him hiding himself. But on the same hand, if God can create us constantly, we would cease to exist. Like the rock going up. The rock doesn't naturally go up. We don't naturally exist. We exist because God is making us into existence. Where something from nothing. Something from something, like a chair, a craftsman that makes a chair out of wood, being that in the beginning there was the person, the craftsman, and the wood. So then when he finishes making the table or the chair exists on its own, because in the beginning it was two things. Whereas God and the world, in the beginning, there was only godliness. There wasn't godliness and something. So therefore, in order for the world to exist, especially as we exist as this feeling of separateness, it has to constantly come about to God constantly diffusing. And just like the rock to go up, it has to constantly have the force to make it go up. Once that force stops, then it comes back down. And so that's what's so interesting, that on one hand, godliness has to conceal himself. We can't see, God can't be apparent in this world, but he has to be constantly recreating us in order for us to exist. We have to stop here. Yeah, I want to do, but we'll have to stop here. And so the point is, we have to learn about this. If we chaz this a few times, think about this and try to understand this more. When you think about this and you realize that this is how I exist, and that level of godliness that makes this world exist, it keeps me in existence. That my existence is a novel idea every single moment. And the more I can understand that, the more I can think about that, the more I can meditate on that, the more love I'll have for God and appreciation. I'll be like, and that's what God's asked me to do in mitzvah. Like, I owe my life to him. I owe not just my life, my existence. The existence of the whole world is owed to him. And he's making me in existence, and he wants me to do a mitzvah. Let me go run and do this. And that's what it's meant to produce. To be continued tomorrow. Have a great day.